We're joined for a discussion via Skype now by political analyst Theo Venter to shed some light on this. Theo, very good morning to you and thanks for your time. I mean, I suppose the question is, and many wondering just what does this resignation actually mean for Supra Mahumapelo or everybody involved in this controversy and the scandal surrounding him? What is the feeling about it? Was he pushed? Was he slightly nudged? Do we actually believe that this was voluntary?
Yeah, well, we can call it an extended resignation because it started like 3 weeks ago. But I think what we've seen yesterday, that he very politically or diplomatically would call leave of absence or early retirement. It sounds like Brian Molefe all over, but this is a resignation. He's out, but he, like your insert says, he still stays the chairman of the party in the province. But I think that is also going to end by this weekend. The NEC is having a meeting over the weekend, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of lobbying to get the party political structures over which Mahumapelo reigns at the moment to replace that with a provincial task team, which will then be the end of his formal chairmanship in the province.
But does this actually mean then that he is completely off the hook on all of the allegations, all of the claims, the corruption claims and allegations that have surrounded him now for years, I suppose?
Well, that is the problem, and it's interesting for us to compare his position with that of old President Jacob Zuma's province or reign. The moment you leave, it's not as if all those things is leaving with you. I think a lot of it will continue. The fact that Zuma, in his speech 3 months ago, used the word perks so often had meaning then. We didn't know what he was meaning. This time around, the word that was used so often was purge, a clean-up process, which I think is actually underway because that's normal once you've got a new leadership. What we had with Supra Mahumapelo and with Ace Magashule and what we're witnessing in KZN is people clinging to their factional positions, and I think there will be a lot of pushback to see if something like this can happen, because the whole use of the word unity is almost like a theoretical phrase rather than a practical thing that they're doing.
Well, we know that the province has stood by Supra Mahumapelo, not the people, but the politicians, those who worked for him and worked with him, the likes of Wendy Nelson, for example, who he handpicked to just be his temporary replacement. So what would need to happen now? Let's start there. What would need to happen now in terms of a complete purge? How easy is it to do something like that for those who worked under and supported him? And then who would we expect would be the next premier of the Northwest, the troubled Northwest?
Okay, a purge is not a difficult thing. The problem is what happens to the individual after the purge. And I think that is the big headache in the Northwest. If you allow Supra Mahumapelo to go off, not as the premier anymore, or take his position as chairman out of his hands, you now free him up to start lobbying and mobilizing all over the province. And he is a master at that. He has shown over the last 10 years to be one of the premier political mobilizers in the province. So I think the one thing the ANC would not want is to leave him with nothing. It sounds almost counterproductive. You want to clean up, but you need to keep him busy. Paul Mashatile was a good example. When Jacob Zuma kicked him out of cabinet, he actually freed him up to start working behind the scenes, and we now know the result of Nasrec. And I think that the fear with Supra is exactly the same. So somehow they would like his involvement in some way or another, but to get leadership that is far closer to, I would say, the Cyril Ramaphosa approach to the political things. Whatever the case, I think the factions yesterday even deepened. And I think one of the best questions among journalists at the press conference was the question that was posed about the 4 people sitting at the bench in front, because they were all lobbying for Dlamini Zuma before Nasrec, and now they are playing a different game. Which game are the real game?
Suppose with the election coming up next year, what do you reckon, Theo, the actual deal made with Supra Mahumapelo is?
Well, I think the first one is to allow him a little space to move off. And I think, like with all the other politicians, I wouldn't think that the ANC can provide a kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card, if we can call it that. That I don't think is on the table. But the ANC in the Northwest, I've heard some people saying that they may lose the province or this. I don't think it's even close. If you look at the province, 3.5 million people, basically a rural province, mining, agriculture, a little bit of manufacturing. That's the province. Our biggest export product in the Northwest is basically educated people. That's what we provide to the rest of the country. And I think the ANC may experience a lessen kind of support, but not close to losing the province at all.
Okay, I suppose we'll have to wait and see. And if your prediction for after the weekend, if he remains chairperson of the ANC in the Northwest at Supra Mahumapelo, we'll wait and see. Thank you very much for that analysis. That's Theo Venter. He's from the Northwest University Business School.